I am a London taxi driver. How you lovely gents, I'm sure, came across me was through my YouTube channel. To do the knowledge is like a minimum of 3 to 5 years, but effectively you have to learn all of London. There is my badge. That's what we work for. Like, this is our gold medal.
So after you've got your badge to become a taxi driver, what was your first shift like?
It's super weird because it's nothing like the knowledge that you've learned. Is that if Uber are surge pricing in London, it's generally always cheaper to get a black cab. So I don't get why people would do it. I'm like, this is so cool. Like, I've just got to, for the rest of my life, I can just jump in a cab and earn money.
Hello, welcome back to the Lads Podcast. Today, we have
back.
our first Zoom guest. We have Tom, the taxi driver. He's here. He's virtually here.
Bosh, how we doing?
Hello, mate. You all right?
We all decided it was time we could get some Zoom guests in. So today we've got Tom in, who you're a taxi driver. It's in the name, really.
Yeah, that's what it says in the tin. So I am a London taxi driver. And how you lovely gents, I'm sure, came across me was through my YouTube channel. So London taxi driver, I've been qualified for about 4 years. Prior to that, I had to do my knowledge, which took 3 years. And during the 2020 lockdown, it was like, right, can't drive a taxi. Boris Johnson says, like, stay at home, everyone be fearful, be scared. So I'm like, if I can't drive a taxi, then what the hell am I going to do with my life? So I decided let's start on YouTube. And it's been gradual sort of progressive growth. And I love doing it. It just helps promote the taxi trade and why I enjoy driving a taxi, really. And presumably you gents obviously found me, so the marketing sort of seems to work.
Yeah, well, it's a very unique channel because obviously, well, I don't know if I've never ever seen anyone else on YouTube that's a taxi driver, especially a London taxi driver as well. You mentioned the knowledge. So for anyone that doesn't know, do you want to explain how you actually become a taxi driver?
So the knowledge of London goes right back to 1865. It's old school. And it was, I won't go into the full story, but basically the taxi drivers of the day were shocking. They were despicable pit creatures. They would regularly go to the pub and get drunk because they didn't like driving taxis and stuff. So it was to instill kind of a level of knowledge, a required standard that every taxi driver had to go through, specifically to London. And some other places in the UK do this, but not to the level that we do in London. But effectively, you have to learn all of London. Like, my studying took 3 years. When I finished, I had about 9,000 points of interest. So you could say, oh, where's this restaurant? And I'm like, well, it's on da-da-da street. And you have to do it with all of London. They assess you like in this sort of scenario, like one-on-one. So I'd go to an office. People think you might drive on a taxi exam. You don't. You have to go to an office and they just sit right in front of you and say, right, Tom, or Mr. Hutley, take me from, we're going to go from the Dogs Trust and we're going to go to Batsy and Cats and Dogs Home. You have to identify both points and then orally call out the route from A to B, entirely from memory. You don't get to use a map or anything. And then they've got a map in front of them and they're then penning it up on their map, making sure it's the straightest line possible. It is brutal. It's mega, but I love it. And I think every cab driver that's ever done it is pretty proud to have kind of got through it. It's definitely the biggest achievement of my life.
Yeah. So let's start with why you wanted to become a taxi driver, because I went on your LinkedIn and you said you were a barista at Starbucks. I did do a little bit of research, surprisingly.
Yeah, I've got my coffee on the go now. I love coffee. That's my other passion. But so I had no idea about this thing called the knowledge. I'm not from London. I don't have any family from London, and I have like no connections with London, right? But I just remember I was working as a sales rep for Samsung. And bearing in mind, I'd already gone to university. I'd studied film and TV production. I worked in the industry. Hey, there we go. Are you in film and TV?
Yeah, I'm doing film and TV production at college at the minute.
Bosh, it's a Mickey Mouse degree. Don't do it at university. No, definitely. I mean, I won't discourage anyone from going to university. You've got to do what you got to do, really.
Yeah.
But what I found out was that when coming out of university was that you could have got a lot further if you just went straight into the industry. Like, obviously they favor people who try and work, for little or no pay, kind of really put themselves out there rather than, hey, I've got this degree. So in some ways it was kind of a setback. So I came out of university, Hopped around from job to job, really couldn't find a place. I was in graduate programs. And then I was working as a Samsung sales rep. I mean, I worked in sales before, but I'm like, how did it go this bad? Like, I've gone college, come out of university with a first class degree in film and TV production, and I'm here working doing sales. Like, not to discredit sales and stuff, I'm like, my life hasn't got any direction at the moment. What's going on here? And when I was doing that, I remember my friend's dad, who had worked in the Met. I think he was working in the Met Police. He was in the police anyway, and he'd retired. And then on retiring, he did this thing called the Knowledge, and he came back one night as a cab driver. And he said, "Yeah, I've just been to work or whatever. Maybe you should look at doing this." And the way we begin it is something called the Blue Books, and it's something like a scavenger hunt. So you basically go through and you memorize all these runs. You have to physically drive them and see the streets, and you remember all the roads and the whole routes. It's about 320 routes in total, but that's how you get started. And that was just kind of something to get me going. It was just like, if I just do this book, I'll have some idea of London, and that's probably got to be a good skill in itself.
So it's very self-motivated.
Yeah. All the study on it is entirely self-motivated. But I just got addicted to that process because you could sort of see the results. It's like going to the gym, and once you go, actually, I understand what I'm doing with the weights now. I can pick these up, and I'm feeling a bit of progress, and you just get sucked into those results. So just went from there, really.
Well, so the Knowledge took you 3 years, I think you said.
Just around 3 years.
What's like the final exam where you pass? Obviously, you said it's like a 101. Is it like a point system, or is it just like got to get it right?
It's so confusing how it works because there's a lot of different like judgment criteria. And then what you were saying about the final exam, what's the final exam like? It's no different from the very first exam. But what happens, you start on what's called 56s because you turn up every 56 days to an exam. You can't get them any quicker. Maybe you could sometimes, but only because there wasn't many people going for them. But generally, every 2 months, you go for an exam, and you then have to. The scoring system's a little bit complicated, but you basically have to pass or fail that exam, and you have to get a succession of passes to then get onto the next level, which is 28 or every month. And then after you have to get four passes on that level to then get through onto 21.
Like a big like chain ladder.
The way I'd look at it is that each level is like a penalty shootout, right? You have to get 4 passes. You have let's say potentially it's a penalty shootout, like 4v4, so 4 to you, 4 to the examiner. So if you fail 4, imagine the penalty shootout's out of 4 rather than 5. If you fail 4, then you're out of the penalty shootout kind of thing. You have to go back to the beginning and start again. And that's what's brutal about it, is the fact that because the exams are every 2 months, if you fail an exam, you've just lost 2 months of your life, basically. And if you fail a succession of them, they do what's called redlining, where they knock you back. It's kind of like being relegated.
It's a very difficult process. It seems.
Yeah. It's that's what kind of gives the brutality to it, because you could be studying really, really hard, but if your mind goes on the day, then you can get knocked back. Like a whole year's worth, effectively.
So it's like the people that stick at it are the only ones that really get through, because probably people that fail the first round and just go, no, forget it. I don't want to spend however many long.
We always say that on the Knowledge, you can't ever fail it. You can only give up. So you basically, if you keep going there, it's like everyone says, oh, there's a badge out there for everyone. You just got to keep going at it. And no one's ever failed it. People just gone, not for me. But it is very brutal from any other exam system I ever know of, because, like think about like university or college, right? You go through year 1, you pass year 1, great. You've got that in the bag. Now you move on to the next year. And then, so I really do like it, because it does it is like a good metaphor to say, look, life isn't always this fair. Stuff can like go out of hand, out of not your way. So it's a really good way to set you up for life, I guess, because everything else is even university, that's the thing I found wrong with that, is it's very sequential. Pass for year 1, now start year 2, pass that, now year 3. It's just quite easy and fluffy in my mind.
So once you pass, what's the process from there? You get a badge, I think.
Yeah.
So what's like the badge? Is that badge just like a certificate? Is that like a way of?
Oh mate, no, this is the gold medal. Like, this is the thing, right? I mean, like, there is my badge. I've got another badge on top of it, but that's what we work for. Like, this is our gold medal. And yeah, I liken it to like an Olympian really, because during your studying, you will never be like, now I'm a cab driver. I am nowhere near as good as what I was during my study. That's the weird thing about it. You are shit hot basically when you come out of there and you get that badge. But no different than like a gold medal athlete. That when they get that gold medal, when they're at the Olympics, they are at the top of their game, and then they'll have that gold medal for the rest of their life, kind of thing. And they can always say, "Yep, I was a really good thing." That's no different with cab driving. And then when you get out in the cab, that's the cool thing about it, is that when I finished my degree, you know, I came out of the cathedral where we all graduated. I threw my mortise board up in the air, you know, the hat that you wear on your graduation. Threw it up in the air. It came down, and I was like, "Shit, now what?" But when I came out of, after 3 years of doing the knowledge, which is of course same sort of time as my degree, they give you a badge, and I went to work that evening. I jumped in a cab, and I'm earning money. I'm like, this is so cool. Like, I just got to, the rest of my life, I can just jump in a cab and earn money.
I think that leads on perfectly to Finn's next question.
So after you've got your badge to become a taxi driver, what was your first shift like as a cab driver?
It's super weird because it's nothing like the knowledge that you've learned, because the knowledge is largely to prove that you know the map inside out, that you know all the different options and you could do the straightest route on the map. But when you drive, obviously you've got to consider things like, you know, crossings and, you know, traffic lights. So it might not be the most direct route. And so the next few sort of months was really adjusting myself to actually understanding like London as a road, because there's roads now when I'm driving, I'm like, I never use that road. Might be the most direct, but because of the time it takes, never use that. But in terms of my first shift, oh wow, it's like you're scared. It's so weird. Like, you've been studying it for like 3 years, and I suppose it's no different than like when you get a job somewhere. You could be the most qualified, but when you get in that driving seat, quite literally, it's like, shit, do I know what I'm doing? Like, it's kind of a bit imposter syndrome, you know? Like, you're like, God, am I allowed to do this? Like, and then you pick someone up. But the cool thing in London is that they see a black cab, and it doesn't, very rarely has it ever mattered about my age. They see the black cab as the signifier of trust. It's no different than if you see a policeman down the street and they're wearing a police uniform. You don't go, oh, he's a bit young. No, he's got the uniform on. He's
qualified for the job.
And that's the same with a London taxi. You can't just buy a taxi and just drive it around on the streets. You have to go through a lot of hoops to actually get one. Like, I think they even struggle for film and TV stuff. They have to usually get a cab driver to come with the taxi to get a black cab. And yeah, so it's the same thing. You see a black cab, that then means, right, that guy's got the knowledge. That guy or girl, they've done the hard graft. They know what they're doing. Yeah,
because I don't know what, from like television, when you think of black cab driver, you think old man. Like we're in one of the older taxis, because obviously now you've got the older ones and the newer ones, which are electric, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is that to environment? Is London making everyone go electric, taxis wise?
Yeah, that's the issue, really. Yeah, London, our mayor, Sadiq Khan, is very much like just outruling. The writing's very much on the wall. But yeah, everything's going to go electric. So it's going to create its own sort of problems, really. So I don't think it's truly the answer, but this is the only vehicle we can get for the job. That's the reason why they're so common now, is because they are slowly getting rid of the older diesels. So it'd be a bit pointless to buy a diesel, because in, I think, 10 years time they're all gone now. Yeah.
I've got another question, and this is probably a sensitive topic in the cabbie world. I think you probably know where I'm going with this one.
Possibly.
Uber.
Right, okay, yeah.
Oh, was that not where?
I'm not too sensitive to it. Yeah, I think but carry on.
Obviously, you've done a few videos on your channel about Uber. How do you feel about Uber, and why do you think they're so disliked by other cab drivers?
So firstly, for me, right, obviously I've only been working in London with Uber. I don't know of anything before that. Obviously, some cab drivers who've been out for decades will know of a clear difference before and after. So it's not affect my livelihood. Obviously, I can still go out and earn a living. It's not like, oh god, it doesn't work. I think when they first came on the scene, which was probably about, I think it's about 8 years or so ago, they were obviously a lot cheaper than like black cabs. You know, people could, it was this fancy app, they could download it and they just press a button and a driver comes. It was like amazing, you know, it's like magical. And I think a lot of people gave it a go. And over time, as we've seen, the prices have just gone up and up and up. And they've got court cases in London. They've realised that the drivers aren't very well trained. And as a result, they've kind of died off a bit. People still use them, but I don't get why. Because one of the videos I made on my channel like last year, I've got to kind of update it now, is that if Uber are surge pricing in London, it's generally always cheaper to get a black cab. So I don't get why people would do it.
But do you think people are still going with Uber?
They are, and I think some people are just Uber, some people are just black cabs, and some people just want to get home. Like if it's just an Uber comes first, there used to be an issue in the cab trade, and sometimes there still is, where if someone wants to go home like a bit further out of London, a cab driver might be like, well, I'm not going that way, and they can turn down certain jobs if it's too far out of town. They're like, well, I'll turn that down. Whereas with an Uber, they can press a button, and because they've got such a massive pool of drivers, there's going to be someone who's going to agree to take that job, basically. Yeah. So in some ways, people I think will pick like Ubers if they're doing quite longer journeys out of town. But inside of town, like you just can't beat a cabbie's knowledge in terms of the time saving. And also as well, you got to look at it worldwide. Like I don't think Uber works very well in major cities, and definitely not very well in London. But you look at America, where you've got real like rural suburban America, where they don't even have like proper buses, right? People can't get around on buses, so they need like this kind of some sort of Uber model, because that really helps in those kind of places. But you forget in London just like how, and even in major cities, I'm sure like where you guys are from, like you've got like trains, you've got like trams, you've got buses, you've got like everything.
I was gonna say I've never ever got in a black cab where we live, Nottingham.
No, they're too dodgy around our
area. I feel like when you see them, they're just like you think, oh, I'm just gonna get an Uber, because you hear so many stories here. Because I don't know if they're as heavily regulated in Nottingham as they are in London. Because obviously London, you've got the meter, you can't tamper with the meter, they're checking it all the time. Here I don't know how that is, but I hear a lot of stories about cabbies overcharging people all the time, or going the long way round. How do you? Has anyone ever accused you of taking the long way round?
Nah, it's like it's generally the people that won't get in cabs a lot who kind of have this idea of like, oh, they might be going the long way round. I mean, that's one of the cool things about, one of the good things about London cabbies is because we've all like, it's to do the knowledge is like a minimum of 3 to 5 years. So there's nothing that any black cab driver in London will do to kind of risk their license. You get people come up to the cab and go, oh mate, how many people would you take? I take 6 people. I can get 6 passengers in my cab. Oh, would you put 7 in there? No. And they say, oh, well, the driver before did it. Like, no, he didn't. Like, I know they didn't, because if I put an extra person in there and I get stopped, it's like, see you later, badge. That 3 years of work you done, gone. Like,
no job.
So
as well.
That's what instills a lot of trust in people, because they know that we've gone through all that process. And it kind of weeds out people who might just be after like a quick buck or whatever. I can't say for like Nottingham cabbies. I mean, I know that as well, that in other parts of the world, cabbies generally are the people that rip you off, and that Uber is actually some kind of form of regulation. Like, for instance, when I went to Romania, I don't know how true this was, but our guide who was kind of showing us around Romania said, look, get an Uber, because the cabs here will rip you off. And at least with Uber, it's kind of tracked, it's regulated and stuff. So I can see it from that side of it. But in the UK generally, with taxis across the board in the UK, they're all regulated and licensed by their local council, the local authority. So you'll have, be able to track that driver. That driver will have a sufficient DBS check. And some of the stuff that's come out with Uber is that they've not even had like basic like ways of tracking different drivers and people sharing different badges and stuff. In London, it's been, absolutely abysmal, some of these things that's gone on. I mean, sometimes the Uber drivers, in fact, I've heard this as well, like even drivers who might be up in, say, Nottingham or somewhere, they'll get licensed in London because it's one of the easiest places to get an Uber license, but they'll drive all around the country.
Oh, yeah. No.
It's so weird.
I don't know when you see this, but we're in Nottingham. If you're licensed, you have a yellow badge on the back of your car, like a yellow plate.
Yeah.
But the amount of times you'll see someone that says City of Wolverhampton or Gedling County Council or not the actual Nottingham one. I can't, to be honest, I barely see any that are actually licensed in Nottingham because it's so much easier to get licensed everywhere else.
It depends, like, on how you conduct yourself and what the job is. I think the actual nature of how it works, like, and it is a bit of a grey area in the law, is that technically, like, I'm a London taxi driver, so I can pick up any job inside of London, right? As long as it's in London, I can have my light on, someone can hail me down. If I do that outside of London, I'm then breaking the law. But if I have a pre-booked job that's outside and comes into London, then that's fine because I'm coming into like my working area, or even technically some pre-booked stuff. So, but that's the weirdest thing about it is that, yeah, you could in theory be pre-booked. You know, I could pre-book my cab to go from, say, I don't know, Nottingham to Scotland. I'm not licensed in any of those places, but I'm licensed somewhere. So it is I think they do to try and debate it in the Commons, and we're getting far too into taxi nuances now, but yeah, it is a weird thing, I guess, but I just steer well clear of it. I've got no need to work anywhere else. I enjoy working in London, basically.
Yeah.
Ben's got a question for you.
My question,
Go for it, then.
Slightly off the topic of regulations, is what has been your craziest experience personally as a taxi driver?
You get like a lot of them. I think the weirdest ones is just like, you're like, how did I get into this situation? Like, I was just driving a taxi, I was just picking up normal people, and then you're like, have I got this wrong in the cab? Like, where did this happen? And you're like, God, like, you're looking at like people walking up and down the streets, you're like, they have no idea what is going on in this taxi right now. Like, it might be in the day or something like that. And to be honest, it doesn't happen too often. I can't draw on a specific like circumstance because it's quite hard to kind of, out of all the different jobs I do, to think, right, that one was particularly bad. But you know, sometimes I can narrow it down if someone says like, oh, what was your weirdest short journey or whatever. I mean, sometimes you end up like, I remember like during the pandemic, I picked up a guy and like, it just meter running, but he was an old guy around Chelsea area, quite rich and well off. And I just ended up pretty much doing his shopping with him like all day. Like, we're going around, he's like, I'm going to go to the butcher's now. And he's like, can you wait outside? And I'm like, yeah, of course. And I'm helping him in with his shopping and stuff. And he's like, right, let's go to the greengrocers. And like, off we drive. You know, I'm like helping him load it into his house. I'm like, this is so weird.
I bet he spent a lot of money.
Yeah, it was. Oh man, I loved it because it was during lockdown when it was impossible to get a job, and you know, so I was really thankful for it. And by the sounds of it, he gets like a lot of cab drivers to do it, and I think that's what it all comes down to, is that you really get into a slice of people's life. You realise how important taxis are to some people, because you think about it, if you live in London and even like in the areas of Chelsea and that, you might have an amazing house and that, but it's not practical to have a car. So for some of these people, rather than having to buy a car, insure it, tax it, worry about where it's parked, it's even just to walk out and just go, I'll grab a cab and we'll just do it that way.
It's stressful walking in London.
Yeah,
we went down to London like a month at this point, and like I wasn't prepared for the amount of people.
Yeah, because we must have walked for about an hour, 2
Yeah.
hours.
We walked from like,
Because
I
it
don't
was
even
our
know
mate's,
London.
it was our mate's birthday, man.
Right, yeah.
And like, so he wanted to walk around everywhere because I'd obviously never been to London, so like sightseeing and stuff. But like, if we were to go to London again, it'd be so much easier rather than walking to like, obviously hop in a black cab or whatever and just go to actually where we wanted to go.
There's different use cases. I mean, when I go to London sometimes, right? Because I go there on my days off because I'm pretty sad like that. I work there like 5 days a week. I say to my missus, right, let's go to London. She's like, come on, you've been working there all week. I'm like, yeah, but I want to go to London. Because I'll get there, like I'll take the tube in, I'll walk around because you can see certain things that I can't necessarily see in the cab. I'll jump on a bus. Obviously, you've tubed on the way in, and they might get a cab on the way back to the tube on the way home. So there's all these different experiences, and like it's kind of good because I know where I'm going. So like when I'm walking around, I'll think, right, I'll walk this way because I know it's going to be quieter. And same when I cycle in London. Like you can cycle on the busy roads, but that's going to suck. It might be quicker, but I'm like, okay, I'm going to pick like a route that goes through the park or it goes through like a real quiet residential area.
Yeah, I went on a Boris bike.
Yeah.
I went to London again like 2 weeks later.
Whereabouts then? Let me try and trace your route then. So you got into what station?
We went coach. So we went Victoria bus station. Yeah, so then we went Buckingham Palace.
Yeah.
And then we went...
Where did you pick the Boris bike up from?
Somewhere near, I think it was right outside the arrivals place. Outside.
Okay,
like
so possibly Buckingham Palace Road. You'd have got on there.
There was some road closures though, so we ended up going. We got lost, and then went round, and then Google Maps sent us on like a 20-minute diversion. And I'm like, and then no, I think we went like Trafalgar Square, Leicester Square. But it was the day, so we decided we picked this day, and then like we booked the tickets, and then like that afternoon, the tube, like TfL announced the tube strike.
Oh, geez.
So we booked all these tickets, so there was no tubes for the entire day, which was stressful. And we didn't want to get a bus because every bus that went past was packed.
Yeah.
So we just ended up using Boris bikes for the entire day, which was questionable. Probably not a great idea.
No, those things are so robust. But yeah, good way to get around. They're wicked. I mean, I think they're designed for like short journeys, so it might have cost you a little bit. I mean, when I was at uni, I actually cycled one all the way back to Hatfield. It was about 22 miles. Missed the last train home. I was like, I know, I'll Boris bike it. And I cycled back, and I'm like, I woke up with this Boris bike in my room. I'm like, what the bloody hell am I supposed to do with this? So to chuck it in my car, drive into London, and again, this before I knew London, so I had no idea where I was. I was like, geez, where am I going to put this thing? And it cost me 60 quid.
60 quid.
Yeah.
Oh, dearie me, that is for a Boris bike. Oh.
Yeah, but I think a black cab home would have cost about that. So one's a more interesting story to tell, I guess.
Yeah, I suppose so.
In one of your videos, somebody smashed your back window of your cab, and obviously that, if it's not like an office job where if your car breaks down you can just get to work a different way.
Yeah,
you have no cab, you have no job for a week or however long it takes to repair. So how did the guy smashing the window come around, for anyone that doesn't know? So
this gentleman, I got towards the end of my shift, and sometimes when you've been working like a full day, you can make a little bit more like mistakes. You might just, because when you pick up people in the cab, you've kind of got to make really quick split second like judgments. And often people that you think look like complete rotters are the most amazing people ever. And the people that look like the most nicest people are the people that are going to give you the most aggro. But anyway, so I picked up this guy, and he was with his girlfriend, and he wanted like a kebab shop like around in like the Mayfair area. And I'm like, where am I going to get a kebab in Mayfair, like the most like posh affluent kind of area? Yeah, and I think he had one in mind that he'd been to, but he didn't like tell me this, which would really helped. And anyway, I caught wind of it, and I thought, I know where it is. But by the time I've caught wind of it, I've sort of had to go. I've missed a few streets to get to it. So anyway, I get round there. I said, I'm really sorry, mate. This kebab shop's shut. And it's this is what I was sort of saying to you earlier, Finn, about the fact that when we're like, how did it get this way? How did I get into this situation? And at this point, I'm like, I can hear him sort of moaning in the back. He's a bit drunk and pissed up. I think he's going to be a problem. And I said, look, I really don't know of a kebab shop, like just playing it on thick. I knew there was kebab shops, obviously. And what made it more difficult was because he only wanted to be in that area, like his hotel was around there. And luckily I got his hotel because that really helped. Because if he was going more out of London, like towards Victoria train station or something like that, then I could just drop him there and say, look, kebab shop, easy. But I didn't want to go that way, then come back, worry about him not paying and stuff. So I said, look, I'm really sorry. So I don't know where I can find you a kebab shop around this area. He's like, what do you mean? And he's going really like questioning me. Like, yeah. Like you call yourself a London taxi driver and you don't know London. And I'm just trying to lay it on thick. Like, I'm really sorry, I'm kind of new to this and stuff. Because I'm a bit younger, I can sort of play that card. I don't do it often, but I can do that. And he just wasn't having any of it. And he was just really, and I just said to him, look, and I think this was the kind of the thing that really upset him the most. I said, look, I don't mind about the fare. I'm really sorry. I'll do the fare for free. And I think he took quite a bit of offense to that. The idea that I didn't want his money, that I was too good for his money. It was just kind of like, look, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to ruin your evening and screw it up. I don't want to take the money because I don't want to charge you for this kind of thing. It'd only been like about a $5 or something. So he gets out. And on the way out, he takes the door and he just slams it as hard as he can just to try and make a point. He's probably the sort of guy who would end up punching walls and just likes getting into fights for no sort of apparent reason. But slams the door as hard as he can. And the door just shut. Like they're quite heavy doors on the taxis. So the door just shut. And I was like, oh, well, I got away here. And as I drive off, he just punched through the rear, that little back window. Yeah, not the back window, but the little rear small sort of triangle one. And it was just a bit of a nightmare to get it replaced. I managed to find out what hotel he was staying at, and it's still sort of going through with the police now and stuff. So I don't expect anything to come from it. And unfortunately, it is one of those things that you kind of do have to put into your sort of savings, into your back pocket, that it might come up. It's no different if someone's sick in the back of your cab. I haven't had that, but if it does, then it ruins your shift. You've got to get it cleaned, etc., etc. So luckily, I was just quite stoic about it, and I got it fixed about a week later. So the more annoying thing was that I'm out of work for a week, which, as you say, like, you can't go to work, can't earn no money. So it's not ideal.
So I think a good thing to move on to would probably be the YouTube. We could talk about that for a little bit more.
Awesome.
Obviously, you said you started it in the lockdown, because obviously there's no work for the whole time. Were you, as a cab driver, allowed out during lockdown, or were you told try and not go out if you can?
Yeah, we was, but I sort of heeded the advice of like Boris Johnson, the fact that, like, if you can stay at home, then do it. And I was thinking, well, do I need to go to work? And when they introduced some of these like self-employed measures where they give you a bit of money based upon your previous tax returns, like they would give you income support and stuff. So I did go with that. I thought for the first like month or two, I did stay at home, largely just to sort a few things out as well. Like, I remember like when the lockdown measures got announced, like I was like, oh great, no responsibility, I don't have to go to work, let's get pissed or whatever. And I was living in a house share. I'm not a massive drinker now, but at the time I was like, this is an obligation of responsibilities. I can do what the hell I want here, kind of thing. And then I woke up the next morning, I was like, no, I've got this entirely the wrong way around. Like, this should now be my greatest opportunity. Not a chance to say, I don't have to go to work, but I can now do something that is kind of meaningful and impactful. So I thought, I channeled it, and I did like a one of these, it's called an insanity workout. It's quite an old school workout program where it's like a HIIT workout. I done that for 60 days and I got in the best shape I'd ever been in. And then I started the YouTube channel. I just started by getting in the back of the cab and just talking about experiences. And over time, as I'm sure you guys find with this podcast, it just evolves. You just start it. You don't know where it's going to go, but you just evolve it. And it's been immeasurable in terms of what it's grown to now. Some just over 2 years later. Some of the marketing it's done, how I communicate and come across to myself. I love it, really. Yeah, it's great.
Well, you've got over 40,000 subscribers, which is impressive. We could only dream. And as you said, I think you said earlier, it sets like a good name for the cab trade. Show that you're not this stereotype of we're gonna take you on a longer journey to stuff like this.
What is your obsession with people in staying work?
No, that is genuinely like the only stereotype I get.
That's why I use Uber, though, to be fair. Like you were saying, I use Uber more just because I know how much it's going to be to get me from one place to another.
But often people just go like, this kind of what I want to kind of break apart is because like people go, oh, black cab's expensive. So they assume that, oh, black cab will always be expensive. So Uber's going to be underneath there somewhere. They don't realize that obviously a lot of the time, I've done this with this video I done last year, that the surge price. I was doing jobs, I'd done a job that went like £5 in round Mayfair. And on Uber, they were charging £15. I was like, what the hell? Like 3 times the amount. It was insane. Like, black cab fares start at £3.20, but I think an Uber minimum price is £5. So again, there's lots of different examples there where a black cab will always kind of be cheaper. But that's more of what I want to do more of. Not to say, look, don't use Uber. Like, in an ideal world, I'd love it if people would use black cabs all the time. But you're going to get people. It's like, right, going to a real nice restaurant or going to McDonald's. Both will do the same thing. But McDonald's is going to make you feel a little bit cheap and cheesy at the end of it. You're not going to feel great and amazing. Whereas going to a restaurant, it's going to be done right. It's going to be perfect. That's kind of like getting in a black cab, I suppose.
Just floating his own boat there.
Yeah. Some more marketing.
Yeah.
But in terms of what you're saying about like YouTube and the growth from that, like for me, it was like, and similar again to what you guys are doing, is that the first year was just steady incremental growth. And for anyone who's starting on one of these creative ventures, like it's just kind of just like a word to put out there, like you do need to kind of go for it for like a year or 2 years, because what happens is that when you grow, or anyone who grows on any of these platforms, it's not like sequential growth of like do, and it just gradually builds up to 1 million or whatever. It's like you'll get like one follower, and then one day one of my videos just went ping. I was like, what? It was the worst video I put out, and it just went.
Yeah, 100%. That's
and then
the case. Yeah,
it's the exponential curve. Like everything does it. Like it's like a compound growth curve, they call it. So you can do it in finance and savings, in dieting, whatever. And it's just like steady, ping, and it just does that.
Well, that's how it was with us. For like the first month or so, or 2 months, it was like steady, like couple follows a day, and then out of nowhere, we just posted this one video. We got like.
I feel like it was the TikTok mainly.
Yeah, it was the TikTok that did it for us, but obviously you had the growth of YouTube.
But doing it on all fronts, that's really clever. You know, having like multi-channel like that. Yeah, there's a few people who speak about this, like Gary Vaynerchuk speaks about omnipresence. Rob Moore as well. He's a really good podcast to listen to about the idea that you just need to kind of just be in everyone. I'm terrible at it. I'm just on YouTube, and that's probably not the best strategy. But what you guys are doing, attacking it all fronts and going right, we're on Instagram, we're on YouTube, we're on there. If you have one focus on each one, exactly.
About that, just like that one video that you think's the worst, or like it didn't take you didn't put as much effort in. We did a video Christmas Eve. I got bored.
Yeah.
So I did a video Christmas Eve, got really bored. It took me like 2 minutes to make, and then it gained us like 6,000 followers on TikTok.
Mental. Yeah, it's so good. Like,
then since then we haven't had a video as well, which was like one of them.
Yeah.
It's just crazy how
it is.
Just the way the algorithms work. It's the worst thing about doing social stuff, but it's also the best thing, because
sometimes it's on your side, sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
Massively. And even now, we're like, when I make a video and I think, oh, this is crap. I really don't want to put this out. I'm editing one now and I'm like, really? but I'll put it out and I'll be surprised by it. You just got to just show up unapologetically, stick it out, be consistent, and hopefully good things will happen.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think the first video I would have seen, going back probably about a year now, was probably one of the driving videos that you did. Like just one of the shift ones, because Finn's watched a couple as well, and a lot of the times I'll just put one on like on like another screen and watch it while I'm doing something else.
Like binge content.
Yeah, it's good content to like binge, which is, as I said at the start, it's like very unique.
Yeah.
Because obviously there's not many people that do videos in a cab. I think there's one guy on TikTok that does it. I can't remember his name.
Lee McQueen. Yeah, I know of him. Yeah, he sort of got me into the knowledge, actually. He ran a knowledge school, and I remember going there when I was learning. And top guy, old Lee. Yeah.
But yeah, there is. Where do you see the channel going? Do you still want to? Because obviously, there was a phase where you had to take down all your drive along. I'm gonna call them drive along videos. You probably won't know about this, but basically, TFL just turned around and was like, "No, you can't use." Was it your own cameras? Was that the problem?
There was a few sort of points that they raised. It was a nice, well, not a nice letter, but the thing is, TFL was a massive organisation. So I think there was another driver who was doing a similar thing, and I think someone complained against his videos. Mine kind of got lumped in with it as well. And it was basically, look, have you addressed this? Have you addressed the fact that there's people in your cab and privacy? Yeah, again, like cameras, they don't want like me to have like, I know, all these wires bloody hanging everywhere with all GoPros and that. If I have an accident or like the airbags go off and it's just this tanglement of wires and stuff. So there was a lot of considerations that they kind of put forward, which you would as a regulator do. I can sort of see why they've done that. I've then had my union go back to them and say, look, what is the real issue here? Because we quite like them. That was their words, like sort of saying, look, we think this is good. It's all positive. They're not slagging TFL off. And they managed to come back with kind of an exact kind of points and say, look, don't do this, or if you do this and whatever. So I can, as you can see now, I've now beginning uploading videos again, slightly more edited. But the future of it, I don't think there's a lot of sort of longevity in me doing like more of these kind of driving videos in London. I definitely want to go down the route of kind of like, I like to think of myself like, and this is a really good question I think people should ask themselves if they're in these creative ventures, is what would I do if I was like Mr. Beast, right? You look at some of the big shit that he does and I think, well, I think anyone can do that to some level, So I'm just thinking of like bigger stuff. Like, okay, what if I took my cab to Berlin and I'd done the knowledge of Berlin? They don't do a knowledge of Berlin. I've been there once, but can I learn it in a week? This kind of stuff that's like, because the driving stuff's good, but it without something unique happening. And I don't want to get to the point whereby, oh, someone was really drunk in my cab and I filmed it or whatever, because it's kind of a bit too clickbaity, and it kind of makes a mockery. It's kind of like that. There's another guy on YouTube that does stuff like this. Like it's like catching people at their worst, and I don't like that. I really think that's really cheap content to go, haha, look at you, you're a knobhead. Like
just to win.
just for the sake of your own views or whatever. So I wanted to do it to share a bit of my history and insights, the routes that go into London, and I think any content I make in the future, I just want to be able to either to highlight the black cab trade, the knowledge that we have to do, and I'll be able to do that through other kinds of videos, and maybe like I could say doing sort of big projects, and I think that's the way that people got to go. You've really got to push the boundaries on it, because it's not that hard to kind of think outside the box and just go one stage bigger. Really.
Yeah, definitely. Do you have any more questions?
Not really. I do just want to apologise as well, because I am actually really ill at the moment. So if it does seem like I'm a bit
tired, but this is the thing though. Like, with two of you on a podcast, you might have one who's kind of going bang bang bang, but the other one's in the background going, I'm checking on the facts and stuff like that. And
normally I would normally speak more. Logan's watched way more of your videos, like binge watched a lot more. So he likes transport and stuff, whereas I don't really use taxis or like Uber at all. Yeah, like I generally just prefer to stay in my local area. That's the most
surprising thing to me, is that people actually watch the videos. I'm like, what? I'm like, who sits? I'm not saying that people watch them are sad, but like, obviously it just shows you that the niches are good. Like, because obviously on YouTube as well, it shows you like what other content people watch that's similar to yours. And there's like the driving instructor Ashley Neal.
Oh yeah.
There's Double Decker Anton, who's a double decker driver in London, and so there's all these different people like, and people like, and like Luke C in a HEV. There's a HEV driver, like he's a top bloke as well.
We've had a Deliveroo/Uber Eats rider on, and that's like a
I
very
see that.
unique thing to do, and that's another one. There's only a few select people on YouTube that do it, so it makes it like they're all kind of interlinked. The people that watch one thing are more likely to watch another, just because of the style of it, and because it's dead unique. I had one more question, but I forgot it. I knew this was gonna happen. It's gone. Let's see if I did. No, of course I didn't. I didn't write it down. But yeah, as you said, do you plan on? This is a very big question. I don't mean it in that way, but like, do you think taxi driving is going to be something that you do for like the rest of your life?
Yeah, I kind of, when I got the badge, it was like, look, this is a really good like retirement option as well, because if you think about certain people with certain jobs, like labourers and stuff like that, anything where you're self-employed, I think it's probably, so long as the trade survives to some degree, and we've been around for 400 years, so I would like to think we could still survive a bit more, or nearly 400 years, in London specifically. But it's like a nice option. Like, you can still like drive a cab like when you're quite into old age, because it's not like laborious. It's not like bricklaying or doing labouring on a building site or something. So I like that aspect of it, that it will always be part of me. Once you've got that badge, you've got it for life. You can go traveling for a few years and then come straight back into the job basically. But I also wouldn't want to just limit myself to just taxi driving. I really thrive on like growing and learning and expanding. Like, for me to do the knowledge was a big journey in itself, and I don't want to just kind of get settled and just be in the same habit of working. Like, I then went on to do a tour guiding course, and I now do a couple of tour guiding courses every couple of years. And that's part of that learning and growth. But even sometimes then, like I've got I do like tours for people who come over from America, and it's a great way to see it in the cab because we can see all of London. But I don't want to just rely upon just spouting the same facts every time, because it's not stimulating to my own growth. And I feel that's kind of disingenuous if I'm just like repeating myself. Like, I don't want to be just doing the same stuff over and over again. So I don't know. Like, I've got my cab at the moment. I've kind of half paid it off, and when it's paid off, I might look at it and go, right, maybe I'll sell up, take the money, and then put it into something else and just challenge myself.
I've seen
take
on
a
your
risk.
Instagram, you also do the BMX, biking, whatever you call it. And
yeah,
that's impressive.
There's a clip in Nottingham there. If you guys saw it.
Yeah, no, I saw that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was. That's also another skill that you've got. Obviously, if you want to take that any further, but really impressive doing the stuff. I don't know if you've seen any of the biking stuff that anyone does. It takes a lot of strength.
Yeah. No, cheers. Thanks for that, man. I mean, like, it's that for me, I think will always be a hobby, because I'm never at the level to kind of get to like world level or be able to compete with it. I mean, I do compete, but it's more like leisure. But I think that really is an important facet to the other side of work as well, because I very much know that this is a hobby, and I'm of the mindset whereby a hobby should cost you money. You shouldn't be able to like, you should have a clear distinction between this is a hobby, this is work. So my taxi driving is work, whereby I'm rewarded for the fact that I go to work in a taxi. That's what gives me an income. But I'm more than happy to spend and plow money into the hobby, because that's something that pulls me away from work. So you need both of them. And I think if you don't have a hobby, then just driving a taxi, it became my life for a bit. When I first got my badge, driving a taxi was my hobby, and it's not good. It's a recipe for disaster, because you need something that pulls you away from work. You know, so when you see that the sun is shining or whatever, right, I want to get out there and go do that instead. So yeah, that's that.
Yeah,
but
I'd definitely say the podcast is a hobby.
Yeah. At the moment,
we'd love to take it mainstream, if that's.
We're still at our growth. Like, we're still growing at the end of the day.
It's not our entire lives yet. We'd love it to become a job. I feel like doing it as a job would.
And if it ever comes that way, I think you would then need to have something that is then a hobby outside, because it's this. And the same happened with my YouTube, right? When it gets a little bit more successful, it makes a little bit of an income. You then try and like focus all on that. You're like, right, I need more income from it. I need more. And then all of a sudden you lose the original energy and enthusiasm for it. So you definitely need to have like something that kind of separates it. And same thing happens like with I started a podcast and like a YouTube channel with a couple of my friends related to riding. And all of a sudden it sucked the fun out of riding, because it was then driven on the metric of our videos have got to be good, our podcasts have got to be good. And, you know, I've had a few other friends who say, look, do you want to do another riding podcast? No, because that for me is kind of like my sanctuary. That's my little like safe place where I go when I want to get away from work.
Well,
so
yeah, because I'm not sure if you know, but we had Matt on the podcast, but he left.
Right.
He left a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying, oh yeah, I don't enjoy it anymore. It isn't enjoyable for me to do it. And even though it's a hobby, if you don't enjoy it as a hobby, if you were to take it, it's going to stop you from taking it.
Yeah.
But then when you take it full time, it's just not going to be enjoyable.
Yeah, when you go full time as well, you've got to have a much better metric than the numbers or just income or whatever. I mean, like you'll get to the point when you'll be able to get sponsors and stuff on here, but very quickly the stress that is then upon you. You know, I don't know what I mean. I'm only like, you know, the next sort of step along from you guys, I feel, but like you know, I've got like sponsors on the channel. Like every couple of months, I get YFood who come and sponsor me, and put some bits towards that. But now, obviously, the pressure that I now have to deliver, I have to get a video out. I want the video to do really, really well because YFood are sponsoring it. If the video does well, YFood are more likely to come back to me. They're more likely to pay me. And all of a sudden, I'm now forgetting about the fact why I'm making videos altogether.
Yeah.
Can you see where it goes here? So I'm prepared to admit that, because that is, I'm sure you look at any other content creators, that's just the way they all go. But
it is
just always, I think the best thing that I would recommend, and I still try and do this to myself, is like, what are the values of the channel? Like, if I'm not getting paid for it, like, what do I really want to communicate here? What can the people expect from this? So that when you do get, you know, offers come your way of like, oh, can you sponsor my product? Can you do this? You're not going to get sucked into it and think, just for the money. Like, because I've lots of people reach out and try and get sponsorship me, like VPNs and stuff like this. I'm like, I don't want to sponsor a VPN. I don't really use a VPN.
Yeah.
You know?
Obviously, because I can see where in your videos you can see where Y food comes in
massively, because I always sort of stop and I used to always just stop and go get a meal deal. It just, my friend used to say to me, he's like, I don't know why you get them meal deals, Tom, because every bloody sandwich tastes the same. Doesn't matter what the flavors are, they all taste exactly the same.
You're hurting me. You're hurting me. I'm gonna
Yeah, but the thing is, I'm like living on them like for lunch, and I think, God, this is absolutely awful. So it did feel
every day. Yeah, it is.
I'm not saying that everyone needs to drink like liquid lunches or whatever, but you'll get times like I'm not really that enthralled by having something amazing to eat. Like my breakfast and dinners are kind of the main enjoyment, so lunch is this kind of middle ground. So that's where that fits in. But yeah, just making sure that whoever you partner with, whoever you work with, always just communicates your values. I find, and then that's a really good guiding post. I mean, I even done like one in the cab like now, like and this is not related to the channel, but like my own personal work, whereby I do tours, and it can be quite a lucrative market because it's a fixed price. It's not related to the meter. They pay for your knowledge. But there were some really, really early starts. And it got to the point where like I was waking up early.
I spotted that in your summary yesterday.
Exactly. So I would get up really early. That would throw my eating out of whack. So I'd be like getting McDonald's breakfast or whatever. And then I wouldn't then be editing my videos in the usual routine. And then I'd be angry that I've not got a video out. And all because of one thing which I really prioritize, which is sleep, was thrown out of whack because of like, hey, money, like I want to go get money or whatever. And just write them down, be really clear with what you want and what you enjoy. This has become a bit of like a philosophy.
I like it.
Yeah, but that was kind of what it kind of links in with a taxi, because that's why I wanted to become a taxi driver, because of that freedom. And again, same thing. Some people do this where they just get sucked into it. We always say it's the only job where you start at the top and you end up at the bottom. Because what happens is that guys like me, especially young guys, they'll go out, they'll get their badge, and they'll go, ooh, this money's great. I know, I'm going to get a nice new iPhone. Ooh, I'm going to go get a car on finance. Ooh, I'm going to get a mortgage. All of a sudden, they've got all these things they have to pay for now. And it's not a fun job it once was, because you're now going to work just to cover all your basic costs of living. So you've got nothing to show for it at the end of it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think we've been nearly 50 minutes.
Bosh, flew by. Cheers, gents.
Yeah, that we're gonna. I think we should ask every guest that we get on.
Yeah.
What is your goals for this year in YouTube, in personal life, something that you want to? Because in a year's time, we'll come back and chase you down and be like, "Did you do it?"
Oh, right. Oh, right.
I never said that. I'm not involved in this, by the way. I'm just a bystander.
No, it's good. But I really like that, because it is that kind of like progression and seeing stuff. Yeah.
Because a lot of a few of the guests have said, "Oh yeah, I'll watch back the episodes," and I did that. So I was
yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah. All right. Like, goals then? Any aspirations?
I think I would like to be a lot more consistent. There's a couple of goals here, like consistent, and I suppose less kind of tied to like work and kind of being like go. Because even like this morning, I'll wake up, I'll do an edit, then after I've done an edit, I'll go to work. I'll work till about 11, sleep, repeat. So I think I've already sort of half touched on it, but to be consistent, I won't be doing like stuff that throws my routine out of whack, like, you know, those tours and stuff, or I'll put them at a time where I know I can regularly schedule them, because I think all the best stuff in life always comes out of routine and consistency. If that's you going to the gym, if that's you putting some money away into your savings, losing weight, it's not one workout that sets you up for life. It's not putting one lump sum of money into a savings account that's going to, you know, have good savings. It's just consistently each day going right, or each week saying, I'm going to put that there, I'm going to do that. And that's where you get that compounding returns. Same with content. If you say, right, every week we're going to put an episode out every single week, and before you know it, a year later you've got 52 episodes out, and then that's big movement. So I just want to be more consistent.
Like a lot. But then when you add that up over a year, 52 episodes is...
Yeah, and you look at it once you start getting monetized and you stick a sponsor in there, that's 52 sponsorship opportunities. So I just want to, I think I just want to be more consistent and be more, I tell you what, actually, I've got it on my desktop here. I don't know how I'm going to put this into like a goal that I can actually achieve. And if you came back to me in a year's time, how I'd actually represent it. I went and saw Darren Brown this week, and man, he is amazing. But he ends his part of his show. He's got this thing. It's 5 quotes or 5 regrets of the dying, and it's like it's pretty like inspirational kind of stuff to make you think, why am I doing this in my life? And yeah, there's stuff like, I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not what others expected of me in life. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. And I wish I had let myself be happier. So these are 5 regrets, like common regrets from people that are on their deathbed who're no longer with us, who are dying or whatever. So I want to I've got them on my desktop now as a kind of constant reminder. But I think to achieve those, I think is just going to be enjoying the moment more. So having some kind of mindfulness practice. Mindfulness, there we go. That's what that's going to be my goal for next year. Mindfulness. But I can stop and go, actually, I can have a break. Done.
Yeah, definitely. Right then. Well, thank you for your time. Yeah, go check out Tom's videos. Is it youtube.com/Tom the Taxi Driver?
Yeah,
Links will be in the description.
Yeah, if you Google me, it's Tom the Taxi Driver on all the socials. I'm pretty well optimized like that. I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry if there's other taxi drivers called Tom. I just like alliteration, and it worked well. Yeah. There is other good drivers out there called Tom the Taxi Driver, but unfortunately, I'm the one who's optimized now. So yeah.
All right then.
Thank you very much.
Thank you everyone for listening to this week's episode, and like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Go check out Tom, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for joining. Bye.
Hey guys.